What's up, y'all? The Chrome Corner is back again. It's UFC 259 this weekend. The main event, of course, is Vojovich versus Israel Adesanya. And we've got the fight pick video for y'all. We're going to start with the prelims. We're going to run through each of our picks. We got Charlie T here as usual. What's up, Charlie?
Not much. Pumped for this fucking card, man.
Hell yeah, we all saw the suited and booted fight pick. We'll put that on the gram too, late tonight or early tomorrow fight day. So again, to what I was saying, we'll go through our fight picks for the prelims. We're just going to run through the picks. And then for the main card, we'll give obviously more of an explanation and how we think the fight's going to end and so on. We'll start with you as the guest, as always, Charlie T. Let's run through your prelim picks, and then I'll run through mine.
Well, the first prelim fight, flyweight, I've got Bontorin. Pretty impressive in his last few fights. I know he had that one loss, but he's an up-and-comer flyweight. Second weight, dude, the catchweight fight, Benavidez and Askarov. Good God, I don't know how this is on a freaking preliminary card.
Great fight.
Second and third ranked flyweights. I'm not picking against Benavidez. I mean, his only two losses are, of course, to the champ. I'm going with him by decision. Kyler Phillips in the bantamweight fight, another up-and-comer. He's got impressive knockout power, taking him. And then, explain to me how UFC Hall of Famers on a preliminary card with Dominic Cruz.
Controversial.
I'm going to take him by decision, but Casey Kenny's got knockout power, and this could be another, BJ Penn-esque scenario where a guy hangs on too long, and I hate to see that happen to Dominic Cruz because the guy's a legend. So, but I'm taking Cruz by decision.
Okay. Some very solid picks. Mine are pretty similar. I think there's only one difference, just looking back through them myself. And to your point, real briefly, it's tough with the Cruz situation, right? I think it's kind of controversial him being on prelims, but at the same time, he did not look good in that fight against Triple C. It was pretty quick and he got put away pretty handily, and he looked like he was, like the strength was just not on his side in that fight. He might be getting a little older. To get to my picks for the prelims, I'm going to roll through. I think the only difference we'll have is the first pick. The first fight of the prelims, I am going to take Kai Kara-France, coming out of the same team as Israel Adesanya. I'm going to give him the nod on that. I'm also going to roll with Joseph Benavidez. Dude's had a tough road with his last two fights against the now champ. But, big fan of his, and of course a big fan of Megan O'Leary, aren't we all, right? Lucky man there. And then, so I'm going to roll with Kyler Phillips, just like you did. Kyler Phillips, shout out to him, actually someone who's shown the page some love. With the page being early on in its start, we really appreciate that. And I just think that he's an athletic fighter, and he brings a lot to the table as a young fighter. And then I'm going to roll with Cruz as well. It's hard to bet against Dominic Cruz no matter what he's been through recently, and no matter how much we may or may not see him aging. I think we'll really find out a lot in the trajectory of his career in this fight against Casey Kenny. So we've got the one difference on those, just the first fight of the prelims. Now, on to the real stuff, on to the meat and potatoes of the main card for UFC 259. Looking at this card, I got everything up on my board here. Every person is ranked. A lot of times you see 2-3 fights on a card where one of the people is not ranked. The only thing you could even argue there is Megan Anderson. It's just not a deep enough division in the women's featherweight, so they don't give her a ranking. But if she's fighting the champ and she's the #1 contender, there's just not enough to rank 15. All right, so for the first fight, again, we'll go with the guest giving his pick first. We've got Thiago Santos versus Alexander Rakic. And we've got Santos coming in at plus 140. He's number 2. So the higher ranked guys actually got the worst odds in this situation. We've got Rakic coming in at -170. So pretty close odds though. Who do you got?
I'm taking Rakic just because, and he's been really impressive. I know he had that split decision loss. I mean, he was dominant against Anthony Smith his last fight. He got knockout power. Can take you all 5 rounds and dominate you as well. And the thing about Santos is, he fought John Jones really well. Really well. That was a year and a half ago. His next fight against Glover Teixeira, he got submitted. And Glover Teixeira is not exactly a young fighter. He's been around the block.
Facts.
I think you're starting to see a decline in Santos, and I think it continues. I'm picking against him, unanimous decision.
Unanimous decision. Okay. I'm gonna go the other way. I'm gonna go with Santos in this fight. I think that, as you said, we're gonna see one of two things. We're gonna see Rakic really take off in his career, and that would put Santos on a decline. With a couple losses, or we're going to see Santos kind of revive himself from a little bit of a skid, and Rakic is going to get a little bit of a speed bump in his career. He's kind of early on in his career, but Santos is a higher ranked guy, so he's not going to lose much if he does lose this fight from losing to Santos. I'm going to go with Santos, and I think he gets it done because of his strength. I think when it comes to the grappling, he's going to be a little bit stronger, and that's going to keep him from losing some of the scrambles here and there. But I do think it's going to be a close fight. I'm going to give it to Santos. I'm going to say he catches him in the second round. The second round, maybe in a scramble on the feet, where they maybe from the clinch he gets a shot off coming out, something like that. So I'm going to go Santos. Now moving on to the next fight. I think this is going to be a highly anticipated fight. Neither one of these guys have huge names, but anytime someone's connected to Khabib, like one of the guys, you're going to have a little bit of star power behind you. So we've got Islam Makachev versus Drew Dober. Islam's coming in at number 14. Drew Dober's coming in at number 15. And Makachev is the heavy favorite at -400. So if anyone's looking to bet on a possible upset, I wouldn't be too surprised if Dober does something to pull it off on the feet, and he's at a +300. You would win some money with that. But so I've got to make my pick on this one first. I really had a tough time with this one. Out of all the fights on this card, this is the one I had the toughest time picking. I can see it going either way. I don't think the odds really show how close of a fight this is going to be. Man, I'm not going to lie. I'm kind of stuck on who I want to pick. I had someone picked beforehand, and I'm almost second guessing myself right now. I'm gonna roll with it. I'm gonna say Dober gets it done.
No.
I'm going to go with Dober. I'm going to say he gets it done via split decision.
Well, obviously, judging by my reaction, I disagree.
You disagree.
Look, Dober's last 3 wins, if I'm not mistaken, have all come by knockout.
Yeah, TKO or KO.
Yeah, great power, great knockout power. We all know what happens when a superior wrestler and grappler fights somebody who has great knockout power. The wrestler is going to win. Makachev, he's unanimous decision. I think he controls the pace of this fight. I think he takes him down. I think he smothers him. I think he wears him out. I don't think he submits him, but I don't think it's a close fight. Unanimous decision.
Unanimous decision for Islam.
I think he'll be a force in the lightweight division for some time.
Okay. I have to. I'm gonna throw this in on the tail end of that. I'm not. I think he's getting too much push because of the connection to Khabib. When I've seen him fight recently, now I'm not saying he doesn't deserve a number 14 ranking, which is where he's at. I think that's pretty deserved. But I think that he's getting that rub of Khabib, and I don't have as much confidence in him as a Khabib. Now, within the camp, we've heard recently in interviews, DC and Khabib and a few other guys have mentioned how Islam is possibly the best wrestler in their camp, even better than Khabib, they've said.
Yeah.
But when I watch him in MMA, when I've watched his fights, he doesn't have, for some reason, or he's not shown if he has it, the same aggressive, unstoppable wrestling, MMA wrestling, that we've seen Khabib have. Maybe it's in there, maybe he hasn't shown it, maybe he's wanted to stand up for some reason against certain guys stylistically, or just wanted to prove something. But I just don't feel like he's shown it. Now, he may show me and he may dominate Drew Dober, who's not known for his ground game. Good possibility. But I'm just going to roll with Dober until I see Islam prove more to me. That's where I'm at with it. So we're back to your pick on the next one. We've got the current champion, Peter Yan, the Russian, versus the number one contender, Aljamain Sterling. We've got this as a pretty even matchup as far as betting odds go. We've got Yan at -120 and Sterling at -110. It's about as close as you can get. So champion versus number one contender, Russian versus the American-born Jamaican heritage fighter. Who are you going with and why?
Well, I watched the last Aljamain fight against Sanya. I saw that ridiculous submission. And once again, it's a league level striker against some guy who will take you to the ground and submit you. But Peter Yan's on a different level. His striking is second to none. He can pick apart anybody. You watch what he did to back-to-back. I mean, you can say they're on the tail end of their career. He destroyed Uriah Faber. He gave Jose Aldo the work.
Absolutely.
I just think he's on another level than Sterling. I think the only person who stylistically could challenge him for that belt right now is Kobe Garbrandt, just because he has such loaded knockout power with one punch. But I just think he's pretty unbeatable right now. I'm taking him, and I'm going fourth round knockout. The trajectory of his last two fights, knockouts came in the third and fifth round. He definitely still has a lot of power late in the fight, and I think he catches him. I mean, I'm not saying Sterling doesn't put up a good fight, but I'm not betting against Yan. I think he has tremendous striking, hard to get to the ground, pushes the pace of the fight. Taking him fourth round knockout.
Fourth round knockout for Yan.
Yan.
Man, it's like we're on separate teams for this fight card, man. I'm going with Sterling. I'm rolling with Sterling, and in my opinion, he keeps distance pretty well. He does when he gets in trouble sometimes, or when he gets a little fatigued. I do see him overreaching. And I think if Yan pulls this off, I think Yan catches him because Sterling decides to go in and he overreaches because he's a little bit more tired, where he can't get in quick, you know? So all these fights on this card are ridiculous. So it's hard to say anybody's going to dominate anybody. I wouldn't be surprised if they were all close. But I just think Sterling keeps the distance well. I think he utilizes his kicks knowing that Yan has the superior striking, especially with the punches. I think Sterling has the superior kicks in this fight, especially the distance-keeping kicks. And I think, although we haven't seen a ton of Yan's wrestling, I think people are sleeping on Sterling's wrestling. I think his wrestling is great. And I think we see it on display against Yan. In the later rounds, I think is when it's going to come into play, when they're a little tired and You kind of see the exchanges get closer and closer because they don't have the speed to get in and out. I'm going with Sterling, and I'm going to go with 4th round submission. So we're both going for 4th round finishes, but you got Jan TKO, right?
I got Jan by knockout.
By knockout, and I've got Sterling submission. All right, so we picked all 3 of the first main card fights opposite, which is pretty uncharacteristic for us. We typically pick everything the same, but about one fight, right?
About switching it up, and we see. I still don't know why you picked against Islam, but good luck.
The dope. I mean, I do have a when it comes to picks, which everyone may not know this with the MMA picks, but when it comes to picks and when it comes to betting, got a little bit of a history of trying to find the upset. So that I feel like that might be what I'm doing. Obviously, it's an upset betting odds wise.
I mean, Chael Sonnen agrees with you. He thinks Islam, this is a dangerous fight for him. So we're gonna see.
Hey, it's hard to argue with Uncle Chael, right?
Yeah.
All right. So now the 2 events that I'm sure none of these names, well, at least 2 of the 4 won't go unknown by any of the listeners. That would be Amanda Nunez and Israel Adesanya. But, so we'll start with the females, of course, in the co-main event. Amanda Nunez, the Lioness, versus Megan Anderson, the tall, 6 foot tall Australian. Rarely do you ever see a 6 foot tall female fighting. And so we've got a new challenge for Nunez, but she's taken down all of the previous challenges since she's been champ in 2 divisions. So, did we have you pick on the last or me?
I think I did.
Okay, so I'll go with my pick on this one. I'm going Nunez. I think that's no surprise to most people. And I think we'll end up picking the same on these last 2 fights, at least from our previous talks. I think Nunez gets it done. I'm going to say, I don't know if I want to go 2nd or 3rd round. Let's go... Let's go 2nd round TKO.
Okay.
Part of me wants to go 3rd and give Megan a little bit of credit, but I just think it's so early. It's kind of too early in her career to be challenging the champ. It's just such a shallow division that she's getting pushed into it. I do think it will take the 1st round for Nunez to figure out the reach of Anderson. If Megan Anderson has any sort of a jab in her, then if she establishes that, or at least tries to with some distance kicking and some long jabs, it may take her a round to figure her out, but I see Nunez figuring out pretty much any puzzle that's in front of her at this point, and I'm going to go 2nd round TKO. What do you got?
Dude, this fight should be on the undercard. I mean, where's the excitement? Where's the suspense? Amanda Nunez dominates women's MMA. The flyweight, bantamweight divisions, bantamweight and featherweight divisions. I mean, the only person who can hang with Nunez is Valentina Shevchenko, as evidenced by their last fight, the split decision. I mean, Megan lost to Felicia Spencer in 2019, and Nunez fought her last fight, and she fucking dominated her. That fight wasn't in question at one point.
I did notice that.
You know, this is becoming a trend, I think, in women's MMA. One woman dominates the sport. I mean, Ronda Rousey and now Amanda Nunez. It's just an unstoppable force, but Nunez is so well-rounded. And I don't think Megan Anderson even puts up much of a fight in this. If she does, I would love to be surprised, because I think,
they need that spark.
But yeah, I'm going 2nd round knockout as well. I wouldn't be surprised if she knocks her out in the 1st round.
Okay.
Yeah, but this is like the easiest pick ever.
Yeah, by far the easiest pick on this card, because this is a hell of a card. The main card is ridiculous. If you're now, there may not be star power, name recognition wise in every fight, but if you know MMA, this is a hell of a card.
It's a great card.
All right. You know what time it is, man. It's the main event. It's the possible night of a new champ. We've got Jan Vojovich versus Israel Adesanya. The champ, Jan, at 205. The champ, Israel, at 185. Coming together for the 205 belt. So the only person with the ability to become the champ, for those who aren't as familiar, would be Israel, because they're fighting at 205. Jan just won his belt. Israel has had his belt for a few defenses at this point at 185. And he's coming up with the lack of John Jones holding the belt, which is something new for the division. John Jones going on to heavyweight, which we can discuss afterwards what the foreseeable future might be after this. You got Jan, or do you got Izzy, and why is that person going to win?
Okay, so obviously I'm going to take Izzy here.
Okay.
But I'm going to say this. I don't think one person who has ever fought for a belt has more to lose than the holding the belt. I think Izzy was handed this fight on a silver platter by Dana White, similar to when Conor was given the Eddie Alvarez fight. They want him to win. They think he's going to win. And I don't see any reason why he doesn't, especially after watching what he did to Costa, that demolition job. I don't think he picks apart Jan quite as bad as he did Costa, but just because he has to be careful, because Jan has tremendous power. He's got great knockout power. But I guess he's a once in a generation type talent. The guy, great reach, great repertoire, unorthodox fighter. Fourth round knockout, that's what I'm going to take. I'm going to take Izzy that way, but he's got to fight John Jones after that. That's the only way he's going to solidify himself as one of the best at 205, especially. He's got to beat John Jones. So I think this fight is basically them laying out the red carpet saying, hey, beat this guy, you get John Jones. Super fight. So Izzy, fourth round knockout, mark it down.
All right, chalk it up. We got Izzy, fourth round knockout for Charlie T. And I'm going to roll with the same wave you're on at this point. I'm going to roll with Izzy, and I'm going to go with a third round knockout. So just one round ahead, same result. I think that, in my opinion, from what I've seen recently in MMA, with limited knowledge that I have, I believe we see Adesanya come in and chop that leg early, the lead leg of Jan. He's not a guy who's light on his feet, so I don't think he's going to be great at checking the kick or at getting out of the way of that low leg kick. And we've seen recently how devastating, if you do it correctly, that can be. And I think with his kickboxing expertise in Adesanya, that he's going to chop that leg early, and it's going to pay off starting about the third round. I think that he's going to control the distance as he usually does. I think it's going to be a new challenge for him in MMA, because this, even though he has a reach advantage on Jan, most of the shorter 185ers don't have that reach. So it's a little bit tougher there. Jan does have more devastating power than I would say anybody, except for possibly a Romero with his explosiveness that Adesanya's faced. But it's a different challenge, different puzzle than Romero, right? I just see Izzy taking it. I think Jan's a little slower. But I want to warn anybody who's going into this with a lack of much MMA knowledge. Yeah, it's just the timing. We're good. So, because after a certain amount of time, it shuts off for some reason recording. So we're good. And we're getting to the end anyways. So I'll just kind of roll back through what I was saying. So if Jan gets off the shot he needs, if Izzy was to slip at the wrong moment and dodge or, shimmy right instead of left or whatever, in that phone booth, the tight quarters of striking with Jan, he can be put to sleep. So he's going to have to use every, striking credential he has to make sure he stays away from that and not take the wrong chances. And that could lead to, in my opinion, a decision victory from Izzy. But I don't think that's how it goes. I'm just saying if he feels it at the early on and is like, oh shit, I haven't felt this in a long time, this guy could put me out, he might end up fighting in a more boring way to the casual fans and coming out with a decision win and picking him apart like he did Romero. But I see Izzy getting the TKO in the third round against Jan Vojovich. That's what I see. And then I see him looking at the landscape at that point and seeing who wins heavyweight, what John Jones is doing, and making his moves from there.
Yeah, I agree. Looks like we're on the same page there.
All right. So now we've got the card pick, the prelims, we got the main event pick. So now let's just touch on real quick the foreseeable future for Izzy. So let me ask, I'm going to put it to you like this. So Francis versus Stipe, who do you think wins?
Stipe wins. Jones fights Stipe.
Okay.
Jones isn't going to fight Izzy at 205 until he wins that heavyweight belt. So if Izzy wins against Jan, then Jones will fight him after he fights Stipe. So it all depends on if they both win, then they'll fight each other.
At 205?
At 205.
Okay. What if Francis wins? Do you still see it playing out the same? Do you see Jones fighting Francis?
Yeah, I think Jones can beat either one of them.
Okay.
I think he's just John Jones is the greatest ever.
Okay.
Striking's great, wrestling's great, takedowns are great. Neither one of them can hang with him.
Okay. Do you think there's any chance, even a slight chance, that Izzy wins this belt versus Vojovich, Jones wins the heavyweight belt, and then Adesanya tries to become the first ever 3-weight champ and fights at heavyweight?
I don't think so. I think he stays at 205.
Okay. Do you think that Ngannou gets it done against Stipe? If he wins that, and there's a lot of time between now and then, but if he wins that, of course, I think Jones and Ngannou fight, which is a lot more interesting to me than Stipe and Jones, because I think Jones just stylistically pieces up Stipe. But we're gonna see Ngannou versus Jones if that was to happen, and then I think this is really highly unlikely. But say Ngannou beats Jones, I don't think we see any Ngannou Adesanya fight at that point. They have the 3 African champions. I think they try to play off of that, go to Africa, have a big card, blah blah blah. If Jones beats Francis, then again, as to you said, I think he goes to 205, and the two guys meet in the middle with the least to lose at that point of any fight ever, because they already have a belt in other divisions and then can meet in the middle, which would be crazy. But that would be the end of all the trash talk, man. Like, somebody's gonna figure it out, and I cannot wait till it gets to that point.
I can't wait ever either. That would probably be next to Khabib, Conor, the biggest fight in UFC history.
That wraps it up, man. We've covered the prelims, we've covered the main card, we covered what we think happens right after. So Chrome Corner, we're out. Charlie T and Chrome.